So let's talk about misdirection a little bit. On Sunday, we hit the first sort of apocalyptic image in Revelation, the throne room scene. And it's all about misdirection. There's this someone on a throne that John keeps talking about. And he builds up these images with metaphors and images that are drawn from the Roman imperial cult. Domitian is actually all ego. So he does not like being called the son of a god. He rejects the title Divi Filius, and he takes a new title for himself, Dominus et Deus, or literally Lord and God. He even has a song written for himself that was sung at the Capitoline Games, and everyone in attendance had to wear white, and they were required to sing these lyrics. I won't sing them for you, but I will quote them for you here. Hail, victory, Lord of the earth. Invincible power, glory, honor, peace, security, holy, blessed, great, unequaled. Though alone thou art worthy, worthy is he to inherit the kingdom. Come, come, do not delay, come again, Domitian. I mean, it's not very catchy, but this is the emperor on the throne. Well, most scholars, including myself, think John is writing. And the image gets more and more dire, more and more threatening, until the point that there's this crisis. This one on the throne holds a scroll, just like Domitian, something that represents the ability to control the future, but no one can open it. And then he hears this cry, this one who is going to come, this Lion of the tribe of Judah, someone in the vein of David, a military leader that can overcome like Domitian, take control of the world, and right the wrongs. Except when John turns, what he sees is not that at all. It is a lamb looking as if it had been slain, standing in the middle of the throne, who takes the scroll and is worthy. It's all misdirection. It's all about our expectations of God, that sometimes we actually want a God that looks like Domitian, someone who rules through domination. But instead, when God is actually revealed to us in Jesus, when we see what God is actually like, it is nothing like that. God is not interested in power and control and coercion. God is interested in self-giving love because God looks like Jesus. That's the reversal of the whole scene. It takes our expectations and flips them upside down. And there's huge implications for all of us as Christians today, because all of us at some point want to impose our views on others. And this has been a feature of Christianity almost since the very beginning, as soon as we had power, to want to enforce our view on the world. And I understand it does even come from a good place. Those of us who are Christians believe that we have some insight into the universe, the way that humanity was created and what we were created for. And so there is an element of wanting to share that with each other. But the way of doing that requires coercion or manipulation or fear or terror or power or control, all of these are the way of Domitian. They are antithetical to the way of Jesus, which is self-giving love, even to the point of personal pain and death. John's concern here is the way that empire steals our imagination of what is good from us. And it makes us believe that empire is the only way forward. That empire is the only way to win. That if one empire is bad, then the only way to fix it is for a bigger, badder, meaner, stronger, more righteous empire to come along and crush it the same way that the bad one crushed us. But that is to have already lost your soul to the apocalypse. That's what we see in the throne room scene, this juxtaposition of the way of the world and power and empire and the way of Jesus. What's really interesting is that just as we have seen historically, we continue to see expressions of this shift that happens as soon as you give in to the way of empire. And all of a sudden, it's no longer just the people on the other side that are a threat to you, because they're the enemy. They're the ones you're fighting. They're the ones you can overcome and you can overpower and you can force to follow your way. What becomes the real threat to you are the people who disengage and choose the way of peace. They become the real antagonist. It happened in the 16th and 17th centuries with groups like the Anabaptist and the Quakers. These were groups of Christians that refused state power, that refused to participate in any kind of coercive control, and stepped back and said, no, we are going to live as outposts of a different kind of kingdom, one that's not interested in control, and we will not participate in any type of state control. These actually became a huge threat to the state, and they were persecuted. Some were even killed simply for refusing to embrace the way of power. And you're seeing this again happen right now. This Christian nationalist movement that is rising up is now not just being angry at those on the left or those on the other side or those they see as their enemies. They are increasingly becoming more antagonistic towards those that choose the way of peace. Let me read you a couple tweets here, a couple quotes here. This is from an author who literally wrote a book on Christian nationalism and encouraging Christians to rise up, take control of government, and enforce it on their neighbors. He writes this: if you think that the institutional church is sufficient to resist and defeat all the worldly ideologies that seek to harm, then you are essentially an Anabaptist. And if someone violently breaks into your house, don't call the police, call the Anabaptists. Return to reformational anti-Anabaptist polemics. Here's another author, channeling my 16th, 17th century Puritan reformer, down with the Quakers and the Anabaptist witches. See, the real enemy is not the one on the other side, it is the one that refuses to fight. And this is essentially what Jesus is talking about in Mark when he talks about the idea of Satan driving out Satan. Yes, on the surface, he gets accused of driving out demons through the power of Satan. And he says, well, that's absurd. Why would Satan oppose himself? If he does, his house is divided and he cannot stand. But then he says, on the contrary, there is another deeper, more foundational way to think about this. Not simply Satan opposing himself and being divided and no longer achieving his ends, but maybe actually to reframe our expectation of what the Satan is interested in. Is Satan interested in defeating an enemy? Or is Satan interested in sowing discord and conflict and struggles of power? Perhaps Satan isn't just interested in overcoming you. Perhaps Satan is interested in making sure that you always have an enemy to fight. And so, if you notice Satan, if you notice the adversary, if you notice yourself getting too hot and bothered, too upset about something, and you let it go, then Satan pops up another enemy over here and gets you fighting that. It doesn't matter who wins. It matters that you are constantly in a heightened state of looking for an enemy behind every bush, behind every door, constantly looking for someone to fight. Because Satan doesn't care who wins. The Satan doesn't care who's fighting who. The Satan only cares that we are choosing to step off of the path of peace, and we are choosing, again, the path of Domitian, the path to control, the path to thinking that we are right, and the only way for us to allow that to take shape in the world is to enforce it on our neighbors, our friends, our enemies. As soon as we have done that, we have chosen Domitian over Jesus. We have remade God in the image of who we think God should be. And the truth is, a lot of the times, we want God to act like a dictator, not a savior. But if you are an all-powerful God, one who has literally called galaxies into being with a word, then I am absolutely convinced that the idea of power, control, sovereignty, all of these things that we think are so important to God, they don't mean a rip. Infinite power means power is meaningless. Infinite power means the only thing that holds any interest, any meaning, is to give yourself away, which is exactly what God does in the person of Jesus. It's in Jesus that God is revealed to us. It's in Jesus that we see who God really is. It's in Jesus that all of our expectations of who God should be and how God should act in the world are stripped away, and we are left only with the self-giving love of the way of the Lamb.